When my daughter looked me in the eye and lied, it wasn't the lie that broke me. It was how calmly she told it. We were sitting at the kitchen table that evening, just the two of us, the way it had always been for most of her life. The sun had gone down, but I hadn't turned the lights on yet. Something about the dim gold of the hallway bulb spilling into the room made it feel quieter, more honest, like maybe the shadows could carry what the words couldn't. She was stirring her tea, chamomile, no sugar, just the way I'd taught her, and I was pretending to fold a dish towel I'd already folded twice. I asked her, plain and simple, "Is there something you want to tell me?" And she smiled, soft, controlled, like the answer had been rehearsed. "No, Mama. Everything's fine, but everything wasn't fine." And I knew right then that my little girl was protecting something, or someone. It's funny how memory works. The moment you realize the truth, your mind starts playing back every little scene you thought was ordinary. Only now they hum with meaning, like music you never noticed was playing until it stopped. But to understand what happened, you have to know where we started. I raised Mia by myself. Her daddy left before she could even crawl. He was the kind of man who smelled like cologne and diesel, who said he'd call on Sundays and didn't even flinch when he didn't. When I told him I was pregnant, he leaned against the doorframe like it was a joke, grinned like it was cute, and said, "You sure it's mine?" That was the last real sentence he ever said to me. After that, it was just court papers and radio silence. So I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, started building. It was just me and my baby girl. I worked at a nursing home during the day and at a diner at night. There were times I changed out of scrubs in the restroom of a gas station just to get to my next shift looking halfway presentable. Mia would sit in the back booth with coloring books, eating chicken tenders, and waiting for my break. We didn't have much, but we had bedtime stories, forehead kisses, and the kind of love that doesn't ask for anything in return. And I made one promise to her that I carved into the bone of who I am. You'll never have to clean up the messes I made. I'll protect you from all of it. Mia was always a quiet child, not shy, just internal. She had a way of watching people that made them nervous, like she saw something in you before you'd even figured it out yourself. She didn't cry much, didn't complain, didn't make a fuss. But when she was 13, I remember picking her up from school one day and seeing her staring out the window, a red mark on her cheek and her lips pressed tight. I pulled over before we even got home. "What happened, baby?" She shook her head. "It's nothing." But her eyes, those dark, quiet eyes, were screaming. I walked into that school the next morning and didn't leave until the counselor, the principal, and the girl's mother knew exactly what kind of mama they were dealing with. Mia never said thank you, but that night, when I tucked her in, she curled into me the way she hadn't done in years. No words, just warmth. She grew into a young woman faster than I was ready for. At 17, she was taller than me, with this long, straight hair she never let me touch anymore. She still drank chamomile at night, still read on the porch when it rained. But she started locking her phone, started spending weekends with friends I never met. I didn't push too hard. I remembered what it felt like to be young, to need secrets. But the distance started to hurt. Some nights I'd pass by her room and hear soft music playing, the kind with too many words and not enough rhythm, and I'd wonder what she was feeling that she couldn't say out loud. I tried to stay close, tried Sunday movie nights, tried cooking her favorite stew and lighting the good candles in the kitchen. But there was a part of her that had gone quiet, a door that used to be open between us, now shut. And then he came back into our lives, Daniel. I hadn't seen him in years. We met through the church back when Mia was around 10. He was married at the time to a woman named Rochelle. And they'd sit 2 pews ahead of us, holding hands like they were still in the honeymoon phase. Rochelle passed away unexpectedly. Heart complications. I remember cooking a casserole and dropping it off at their house after the funeral. Daniel hugged me at the door. He looked lost. We kept in touch, loosely. He'd text on holidays, ask about Mia. share a Bible verse here and there. He was always respectful, kind, never inappropriate. A year ago, he came to town again, said he was relocating for work. We had coffee, caught up, nothing serious, just two grown people trying to remember who they were. He was 15 years older than me, gentle, good with words, always seemed to listen more than he spoke. I won't lie. There was a moment I thought, maybe this is what life has been saving for me. He started coming by the house, always brought something, cookies, flowers for the porch, a new book for Mia. They'd laugh sometimes, inside jokes I didn't get. I figured he was being kind, thought of her like a niece. But now, looking back, the way her eyes lingered on him when she thought I wasn't watching, the sudden brightness in her voice when she'd hear his name, it wasn't kindness. It was something else, something blooming in the dark. That night at the kitchen table, I asked her again, one last time, "Mia, is there something going on between you and Daniel?" She blinked, then smiled, then said the calmest, most devastating thing I've ever heard. "I'm not the one you need to worry about, Mama." He chose me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the pounding in my chest. The shadows on the walls shifted with every passing car outside, and every time the light hit just right, I swore I could see my little girl at age 5, curled up in her pink pajamas, whispering about her dreams. I wanted to go back to that moment, to rewind, to freeze her in time, before she could ever learn how to say a sentence like, "He chose me." What did that even mean? Daniel was a grown man, a friend of mine, someone I'd trusted enough to let into our home, into our lives. He was kind, respectful, thoughtful. He knew the struggle I'd faced raising Mia. He knew how hard I'd worked to give her stability. He knew better. And yet, that smile she gave me, not defiant, not even smug, just resigned, it told me everything I didn't want to know. It wasn't a crush. It wasn't a fantasy. It was real. The next morning, I made pancakes, not because I was hungry, but because it gave my hands something to do. The scent of vanilla and browning butter filled the house, warm and familiar. I hoped maybe the smell would take her back to a time when I was her hero, when Saturday mornings meant cartoons and syrupy smiles, not secrets. Mia walked in wearing his hoodie, that navy blue zip-up I'd seen on Daniel just the week before, the one with the frayed cuffs and the faint coffee stain on the pocket. She didn't say a word about it, just sat down, picked up her fork, and ate like it was any other Saturday. I couldn't even speak. I just watched her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she avoided my eyes, the way her hand hovered for half a second before picking up her phone, like she was waiting for a message. He didn't text me that morning. He usually did. "Morning, Ruth. Hope today's gentle," something like that. But this time, silence. Over the next week, the signs started screaming at me. He came by the house less. When he did, he barely looked me in the eye. He'd bring something for Mia, her favorite herbal tea, a new book from that store she loved downtown, always wrapped neatly, always with a little note tucked inside. He never left me notes. And Mia, she was different, calmer in a way, but not peaceful, more like resolved, as if she'd decided and was waiting for me to figure it out. I started checking her phone when she was in the shower. I know, I shouldn't have, but I'm her mother, and something inside me, something primal, told me to look. At first, it was just emojis, hearts, locked messages, a photo of a latte he'd sent her, with a heart drawn in the foam. Then, his name saved in her contacts as Oak Tree, and messages like, "You make me feel alive again. She'll never understand us. I'll tell her when the time is right." My fingers went numb. I dropped the phone like it was hot, like the words had burned straight through me. I wanted to scream, to wake her up and demand answers. But instead, I sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her pink curtains, and cried, because I had failed. I hadn't just let a wolf into my home. I'd handed him the key. The next day, I called out of work. I sat in the kitchen all morning, waiting. Not cooking, not cleaning, just waiting. Mia came down around 10, her face glowing like springtime. She looked rested, light, like a girl in love. I felt sick. I asked her to sit. She did, wary this time. "I saw your messages," I said. Simple, no drama, no raised voice. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just blinked. Once. Then looked down. "So, you know." I nodded. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, 6 months. My stomach flipped. 6 months of hiding, of lying, of letting me believe Daniel was just a friend, a visitor, a piece of calm in our life. I asked the question that had been clawing at me from the inside out. Why him, Mia? She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it. The girl, the child, and the woman, all at once. "I don't know," she said. Her voice broke just a little. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. He listens to me. He sees me. Not like a kid, not like someone to fix. He treats me like I matter." I felt something twist inside me, because I had tried so hard to make her feel that. Hadn't I? "Mia, he's a grown man. He's my age. I didn't plan it, Mama. It just happened." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you," but she had. And the worst part? She wasn't sorry for loving him. She was only sorry I knew. That night, I went for a drive. No destination, no radio, just the hum of the engine and the ache in my chest. I ended up at the Overlook, the one we used to go to when Mia was little, just to watch the stars. I sat there for over an hour, staring out into the black, thinking about everything I'd tried to give her, everything I'd tried to protect her from. I'd walked through fire so she wouldn't have to, and now she'd stepped right into it. With open arms. The question kept echoing in my head. Was it her mistake or mine? I didn't confront Daniel right away. I wanted to. God knows I did. But anger has a way of clouding reason, and I needed mine clear. I wanted to look him in the eye and see what kind of man could betray not just me, but her. So I waited. I waited for the next time he'd come by. And he did, 3 days later. He showed up with a small brown paper bag and that polite smile I used to think was kind. It was late afternoon. The sun was catching on the dust in the air, turning it gold. I remember thinking how strange it was, that something as filthy as dust could look beautiful if the light hit it right. He stepped through the doorway like he always did, easy, familiar, like this was still his home to walk into. "Hey, Ruth," he said softly. "Got those ginger cookies Mia likes." The way he said her name made my stomach knot. I poured coffee for us, hands steady though I felt like shaking apart. He sat across from me, at that same old oak table that had seen 1,000 meals and secrets. I let him talk first. He asked about work, about church, about the garden I never had time to tend anymore. He was pretending everything was normal, but I could feel it, that quiet undercurrent of tension between us. Finally, I asked, "Daniel, how's your wife?" He froze. It was subtle. A half-second pause, the kind only someone who's been watching too closely could notice. "She's doing well," he said. "We're figuring things out." "Figuring things out," I repeated, my tone slow, deliberate. That sounds like what people say when they've already decided something. He didn't answer. So I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Are you seeing my daughter?" The sound in the room changed. It's strange how silence can make everything louder. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint buzz of a fly against the window, even my own heartbeat in my ears. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me, eyes soft, like pity, like apology, and said, "Ruth, I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed, sharp, hollow. You didn't mean to? What do you mean, Daniel? You tripped and fell into my daughter's life? He flinched. I care about her. I didn't expect to, but she understands me. We talk. We connect in ways. I slammed my hand on the table. Stop. He went quiet. I was shaking now, not with rage, but disbelief, the kind of disbelief that numbs you until you don't know if you want to scream or cry or both. You have a wife, I said. A wife. And she's half your age. He ran a hand over his face. Ruth, my marriage has been over for years. Rochelle and I are... Don't, I cut him off. Don't drag her into this. Don't make your sins sound poetic. He didn't look at me after that. I don't remember standing up. I just remember my voice, low, shaking, saying, "You're not welcome here anymore." He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't let him. I mean it, Daniel. Don't you come near her. Don't call her. Don't text her. Don't even drive past this house. His expression hardened just slightly. Ruth, she's not a child. She's an adult. She's my daughter, I snapped, the words cutting through the air, and you're a grown man who knows better. Your filth, that got to him. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just picked up the paper bag, those ginger cookies I couldn't even look at, and walked to the door. He paused there, turned back once. She loves me, he said softly, and then he was gone. Mia came home an hour later. I was still sitting at the table, my hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. She stepped into the kitchen and froze when she saw my face. "Mama, what did you do? I told him not to come back." Her eyes widened. Then, disbelief, anger, fear. "You had no right." My voice cracked. "No right? He's married, Mia. He's old enough to be your father." Her voice rose, trembling. "You don't know him like I do. You think because you're my mother, you get to control who I love?" "This isn't love," I whispered. "Yes, it is." Her breath was shaking. "He listens to me. He sees me. You don't understand what that means." The words landed like glass breaking in my chest. "I see you, baby," I whispered. "I always have." She looked at me then, not as a daughter, but as a woman defending something she believed in. "You ruined everything." She ran upstairs before I could answer. I heard her door slam and the house went silent again. Only this time, it wasn't peace. It was distance. A mother and daughter, separated not by walls, but by choices neither could undo. For days, we barely spoke. She avoided me, slipped out early, came home late. I stopped asking where she was going. Every question turned into an argument, until one night she didn't come home at all. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Called again and again. By midnight, I was pacing the living room, tears burning my eyes. At 1:30, I heard a car pull up. Headlights flashed across the curtains. She walked in, hair messy, makeup smudged, eyes red. "Where were you?" I demanded. "With him," she whispered. Something in me broke then. "Mia, he's using you. He's saying the same things he said to me once, to Rochelle before me. You think you're special, but you're just..." "Stop!" she yelled, her voice raw. "Don't you dare say that about him. You don't know what we have." She was crying now, shaking, clutching her purse to her chest like it was armor. I wanted to grab her, hold her, beg her to listen. But she looked at me like I was the enemy, and in that moment I realized I couldn't protect her anymore. She wasn't the little girl who needed saving. She was a woman making her own mistakes, and I was the mother who had to watch. That night, after she went to her room, I sat in the hallway. I listened to her sob quietly behind the door. That broken, muffled sound I'd heard when she was a child, afraid of the dark. Only this time, the darkness wasn't under her bed. It was in her heart, and I couldn't chase it away. I didn't speak to Daniel again. I didn't need to. But I did make one call. Rochelle, his wife. Now, I'm not proud of that. Not the way it happened. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because silence wasn't safety anymore. Silence was how women like Rochelle and I got broken, by men who thrived in shadows. I found her number the old-fashioned way, in my worn-out black address book, the one tucked behind my spice rack. She was still living in her mother's house across town. When she picked up, I nearly hung up. But then I heard her voice, tired, wary, and I remembered the woman who used to braid her hair before church, who laughed soft like wind chimes, who held her husband's hand like it was her lifeline. "Rochelle," I said. "It's Ruth." A pause. A sharp breath. "Ruth," she said slowly, "I haven't heard from you in years." "I know." Another silence, this one deeper. Then I said the words I had never imagined I'd have to say. "It's Mia." To her credit, Rochelle didn't scream, didn't cry. She just listened. I told her everything, carefully, honestly, not to hurt her, but because I knew she deserved the truth. She asked only one question when I was done. "How long?" "6 months," I whispered. "Maybe longer." "I don't know." Then came the softest, saddest sigh I've ever heard. "Of course it was your daughter," she said. "Of course." I didn't know what she meant at the time, but I do now. When men like Daniel walk through life with that easy charm, that gentle tone, that safe smile, they don't just manipulate, they target. And he had targeted me. And now, he'd done the same to my daughter. After that call, I started making moves, not out of revenge, but protection. Real protection. Not the kind you promise a child in the crib, the kind you give a woman when she doesn't know she needs it. I changed the locks. Quietly. I didn't tell Mia. I knew she'd find out eventually, but I needed boundaries between our world and his. I deleted his number from her phone while she slept. I went into our wireless plan and blocked his number entirely. I installed a small camera at the front porch, just in case. And then I waited. He came by on a Thursday evening. I watched him from the living room window. He stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, staring at the door. He didn't knock, didn't ring, just stared. Maybe he knew. Maybe he felt it, the shift in the air, the weight of something breaking. After 5 minutes, he walked away, and I let him. That night, Mia found the blocked number. She came downstairs in a fury, her eyes wide, her voice shaking. "You changed everything." I did. Why? I looked at her for a long time. She was wearing one of my old sweatshirts, her hair tied back, no makeup, just my baby girl, angry, heartbroken, confused. "Because I love you," I said. "Because I can't stop you from making choices, but I can make it harder for him to reach you." She threw her phone down. "You think I'm a child? You think I don't know what I'm doing?" "I think you're hurt," I said softly. "I think you've mistaken attention for love. And I think a man his age should have known better." She sat down hard at the kitchen table. For a moment, we both just sat in the silence. "I loved him, Mama," she whispered. I felt something crack in my chest. "I know, baby. I know. And I hate that I still do." That night, we talked. For hours. Really talked. She told me everything. How it started. How he'd reached out one evening after I'd gone to bed. How he complimented her writing. How he listened when she felt I didn't. How she didn't mean for it to go that far. How at some point she stopped seeing his age. Stopped seeing mine. "I thought I was grown," she said. "But I was just lonely." And he filled that space I didn't interrupt. Didn't scold. I just listened. Because that's what I hadn't done before. She told me he'd made promises. Said he was separating from Rochelle. Said he'd wait until Mia turned 21 to make things official. That he respected her. That he'd never hurt her. She believed him. And part of her still wanted to. That's what scared me the most. I told her about Rochelle. About the phone call. about what Daniel had said to me years ago, the things that, in hindsight, had felt wrong but I'd dismissed. I told her that when I was her age, I fell for a man just like him, and I watched her eyes soften. "Mama," she whispered, "why didn't you ever tell me that?" "Because I wanted you to believe the world was better than it was." The next day, Mia blocked him herself, not because I told her to, but because she saw, and when a girl sees truth for herself, no mama needs to say a word. She cried in my lap like she used to, tears soaking my shirt, her shoulders shaking, all that armor finally slipping off. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you." And I held her, tighter than I had in years. "You're not broken," I said. "You're just learning." And I'm here. No matter what Rochelle filed for divorce 2 weeks later. I didn't ask for details, she didn't offer them, but I knew, in that quiet, respectful way women sometimes do, that she had made her decision long before I ever picked up the phone. What I hadn't expected was what came next. Small-town whispers travel faster than fire, and in our town, fire's always been easy to start. It started at church. The ushers glanced sideways when we walked in. One woman pulled her daughter a little closer when we passed. By Wednesday, the church group chat had lit up like a gossip bonfire. I only knew because Sister Lena, bless her heart, called me directly. They're saying Mia was the reason Daniel and Rochelle split, saying you hid it, tried to play both sides. I closed my eyes, took a breath, counted to 4. "She's just a child," I said softly. "A child who made a mistake. And she's learning." Sister Lena didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, "Well, we've all been there." And that was that. But not everyone was so kind. Some folks said it behind their hands. Others said it plain. The PTA meetings got quieter when I walked in. Invitations to things we'd always been part of just stopped arriving. And Mia? She bore it in silence. She went to her classes, kept her head down, worked part-time at the library like nothing had changed. But I saw the weight on her shoulders, the way her eyes flinched when someone looked too long, the way she sat in the back pew now instead of beside me. And I knew I couldn't protect her from this either, but maybe I could stand beside her through it. So the next Sunday, I did something I hadn't done in years. I stood up in front of the congregation, right after the sermon, when the final hymn ended and people were still seated. I stood up, my knees shaking under me, and I said, "I want to say something before we go." Heads turned, murmurs fluttered. I took a breath, looked straight ahead. My daughter made a mistake. And yes, it was a painful one. For me, for our family, for others. I paused, let it settle. But she is not the only one who did wrong, and she is not the only one who deserves grace. Some people looked down, others looked away. I didn't care. I raised Mia to take responsibility. And she's doing that, quietly, bravely, without blaming anyone else. So I ask you, not for your sympathy, but for your fairness. Judge her the way you'd want someone to judge your own child. Silence followed. Then, slowly, quietly, Sister Lena clapped. Then the woman behind her, and then the whole room. It wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. That week, things started to shift. People stopped whispering and started speaking. Not everyone, of course, but the ones that mattered. A woman from the library baked Mia cookies and said, "I made some of the same mistakes. Took me longer to admit it." A teenage girl from youth group messaged her online, "You're brave." And slowly, one cracked brick at a time, the wall between Mia and the world began to fall. Daniel left town not long after. No goodbye, no fanfare, just a "for sale" sign in front of the small apartment he'd been renting, and a rumor that he'd taken a job 3 towns over. I didn't celebrate. I didn't curse him either. Some people leave behind messes. Others leave behind lessons. He'd done both. One evening, Mia and I sat on the porch. She was curled up in the faded green blanket we always kept by the door. The cicadas were singing and the air smelled like distant rain. "I hate how people look at me now," she said, "like I'm ruined." I looked at her, at the woman she was becoming. "You're not ruined," I said. "You're refined." She furrowed her brow. "Like gold," I added, "put through the fire. Comes out stronger." She smiled. "Just a little." Fall came quietly that year. The leaves changed slower than usual, and I remember thinking how fitting that was. Everything in our house was moving slowly, too, but not in a bad way. Just careful, gentle, like healing had to whisper its way in. Mia started writing again. At first just in her journal, curled up on the couch with her knees tucked to her chest like she used to do when she was little. Then slowly, she started leaving pages out where I could see them. One day, I came home from work and found a stack on the kitchen counter. Essays, letters, even a short story. All of them in her hand, neat and thoughtful. Like every word had been filtered through all she'd lived, and all she still didn't know how to say out loud. The one on top was titled, "The Woman in the Mirror." I sat down and read every word. My hands trembled, my throat closed. Because it wasn't just a story, it was a confession, and it was also a goodbye. Not to me, but to him. In the story, the woman in the mirror wasn't a villain. She was a version of herself, younger, softer, more hopeful. The version that had fallen for a man she thought saw her. And the mirror? It didn't lie. It just showed her what she didn't want to see. It showed her a girl confusing validation for love, a girl craving attention from someone who should have protected her, not desired her. And in the final paragraph, she wrote, "I still ache when I hear his name, but I no longer mistake that ache for affection. I know now that the deepest kind of love is the kind that makes you more yourself, not less." I found her upstairs an hour later in her room, reading. I didn't knock. I just walked in, sat beside her on the edge of the bed, and said, "I'm proud of you." She looked up, blinking. "For what?" she asked. "For choosing to see yourself clearly. For writing what hurts. For letting go." She didn't cry this time. She just reached for my hand. And we sat like that, fingers entwined, mother and daughter, no longer divided by shame or silence, but held together by honesty. We didn't talk much about Daniel after that, not because we were pretending he never existed, but because he didn't own the story anymore. She did, we did. One Saturday, a few months later, Mia asked if we could plant something together. I raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you want to dig in the dirt?" She shrugged, smiling. "Since I realized healing needs roots." So we drove to the nursery just outside town and picked out 2 small crepe myrtle saplings, one pink, one white. We planted them on either side of the front porch. The soil was hard. The sun was hot, but we laughed the whole time, splashing mud on each other's jeans, arguing about who was better with a shovel. And when we were done, she pressed her hands into the earth and whispered, "Grow something beautiful." I didn't say anything. I just stood beside her and let the tears fall, because that's what she was doing too. After all that had burned, she was planting something new. Mia decided not to transfer schools, even though she could have. "I don't want to run," she told me. "I want to stay. Show people I'm not what they think." And she did. She started tutoring other students, girls mostly, quiet ones who sat in the back with downcast eyes. One of them told me later that Mia had changed her life. "She told me I deserved more," the girl said, and for some reason, I believed her. I just smiled and nodded, but inside my heart ached with pride, because Mia wasn't just healing, she was helping, and I don't think there's any clearer sign of redemption than that. One night, a soft, windy evening in late spring, we were on the porch again. The saplings had tiny blossoms starting to peek through. Mia sipped her tea, and I asked carefully, Do you think you'll fall in love again someday? She looked out into the dark, then shrugged. Maybe. But not the kind that asks me to shrink, I nodded. Good. She looked over at me. You ever think about it for yourself? Love, I mean. I laughed. Oh, honey. I got enough love right here. She rolled her eyes, but her smile told me she understood. They say you can't protect your children from life, that all you can do is love them enough to give them strength when life finds them anyway. I used to think I could shield Mia from every kind of pain, that if I just worked hard enough, stayed close enough, prayed deep enough, she'd never have to face the kind of heartbreak I did. But what I've learned is this: some lessons must be lived. Some scars have to form from the inside. And sometimes, being a mother doesn't mean stepping in front of the storm. It means standing beside them as they walk through it. And now, I don't see my daughter as someone I failed to protect. I see her as someone I helped become brave, someone who made a mistake and then made it right, someone who didn't let shame swallow her whole. If you're still here, still listening, thank you. Thank you for holding space for this story, for our story. Maybe you've been the mother, watching your child slip into something you couldn't fix. Or maybe you've been the daughter, the one who reached for something that looked like love, but left you feeling smaller than before. Either way, I see you, and I hope you know it's never too late to come back home to yourself. It's never too late to choose better, and it's never too late to be forgiven. Would you have done what I did, or would you have let her learn the hard way? Tell me in the comments. I always read every word. And if this story touched something in your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose storm your story might calm. Until next time, with love, Sister Ray.